Fantasy Y2K.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 30th of June, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Fantastic.
And Robert Kemp.
He's great ass. I don't know.
You said you were going to say it's two words, but you didn't because there's only one Y. Fantastic.
Y2K. Well, a bit. Oh, yeah, I suppose it would be. Yeah, that's not. I said I sort of put the Y on both words. I suppose. Yep. Yeah, it was. I didn't quite know how to say that. Like, because otherwise it would be Fantasy 2K.
Yeah, but which is not what it actually means.
Fantasy Y2K. Yeah, fantastic. I suppose you're right. Fantastic. Your ass is so
like fantasy football, but for the year 2000. What is this aesthetic?
I didn't actually look at it yet.
No, I mean, presumably it's like, I don't know. It could be either it's literally just the year 2000 styled, or it's like a sort of post-apocalypse, as if Y2K happened.
Bug, right, destroyed the world.
Why is there a picture of a? Is that a screenshot from Ella Enchanted?
Okay, it's medieval fantasy reinterpreted for the 2000s.
Okay, so like, very, very colourful, I guess. The sort of art you'll find at a crystal selling shop.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Not quite black velvet, but you know.
Glastonbury Wizard, I would call this.
I'm sure that's a different aesthetic.
Yeah, I'm sure that's on there. You have to start adding your own names to the list. Glastonbury Wizard. You watched any Glastonbury?
I haven't. No, I've not been. I've not really been about to watch it. So
I'm watching some.
Any highlights? Any actual good?
Yeah, I mean,
any good people?
Good yeah, but I mean, I was very lucky the last time I went because it was like it was postponed because of COVID or whatever. But it was like a 50th anniversary year or whatever. So I got the lineup was incredible when I went. This doesn't seem. I'm not so. Jealous of not being there this time around. It's okay, especially in terms of headliners. Like, I haven't even watched. Like the first night, Friday is Dua Lipa.
Right. Yeah. No. Told me she'd seen a bit of that, and was just like, yeah. I mean, she's a good performer, but like, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't really get her. I don't see why her music is such a big deal. I know that's mean, but to me, it's just like this is utter like the middlest of the road pop. It's
pretty glossy pop music. Yeah, it's not really I can appreciate. I don't know, but like I saw a tweet which was like because their performance obviously very amazing, dancing, professional, and everything. And I saw a tweet that said she's got like popular girl at school doing a dance in assembly energy. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's true.
That is so mean, but also
it's harsh but true. Yeah, I mean, good luck to her. But anyway, and then you need a big rock act for Glastonbury. So who do they get? Coldplay again.
Yeah.
So I haven't even bothered to watch that
because they've got a new album out, right? It's all a bit.
But because the great thing about Glastonbury is there's so much stuff, and of course, because with the BBC coverage, you can just click on things, right? So, for example, I just watched a whole hour set of my favorite, Danny Brown.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So check that out.
I might go and watch that.
Yeah, there's loads of all good things. But what I'm finding is because we're getting old is like when I was going, earlier or watching it earlier, there'd be contemporary acts and then there'd be the older like rockers or whatever, or the older acts that everyone knew, like Guns N' Roses or something like that. You know what I mean? Or it would be even freaking the Rolling Stones would play or something like that. So there'd be like the up-to-date stuff and then the classic stuff, right? But now the up-to-date stuff from when we were at university is now the classic stuff.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's really, so I'm watching like LCD sound system on the main stage.
Yeah,
sweet, awesome set. But of course, it's 20 years. All the music is 20 years old, right? But for me, it's like, oh my god, LCD sound system. But it was like LCD sound system followed by Dua Lipa, and it's like LCD sound system was way better. Oh my god. Anyway, but and that was still good. the thing about James Murphy, the lead of LCD Sound System, is even in 2004 he was already older than his contemporaries or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lyrics are singing about how we're too old for this, and now it's 20 years later.
I mean, that's a great thing to do, though, right? Because it means the music is still relevant.
Yeah, exactly, and it's still good. I love All My Friends and all those tracks, and they played all the like big emotional ones, Someone Great and all that stuff. Dance Yourself Clean. Yeah, so I was into that. And what else have I seen?
North American Scum.
The Breeders played on the Park stage, which is apparently 32 years since their first Glastonbury performance. Anyway, but yeah, still great. Love Kim Deal, Kelly Deal, brilliant. So yeah.
All right. So
I realize it's a sports summer, but I'm more interested in myself. So it's more my thing.
It's a bit strange, but I'm actually near Glastonbury next weekend.
So
it's like dodge the good weekend and go the next one.
I mean, you don't want to be around there if you don't have tickets.
Yeah, I know. It's because we know someone down there. But yeah, we don't. You don't really want to be in the area like that weekend, right? Like,
no,
not even close.
Definitely not. The weather's nice at the moment.
Yeah, I think they lucked out clearly because there was only a little bit of rain this morning, right? It's,
exactly. They've done well.
It's like for a Glastonbury, they've done well. Minimal Mud. Maybe that should be that's a pretty good band name. Minimal Mud.
Minimal Mud.
Oh, but then they do Puddle of Mud covers, like, and nobody wants that.
When I first went to Glastonbury, I was really worried about it being muddy. And then it was, and it was fine. It was totally fine. I was like concerned about it, but it was actually.
I guess you just kind of have to, if you know that's what it will be as you go in. It's like you're just kind of ready for it, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, Touchwood has been quite good the last, few years. Hasn't been a mud bath, but it was. And, they try and deal with it. Like they put like wood chip down on the mud on the stages or whatever after in the morning or whatever to kind of help stuff like that.
Try and layer over it a bit.
Yeah, it's an experience. Anyway, the thing is that like not weather, but like in the time of year like this with the temperature like it is, like even if it's wet, like it's okay being outside. You're not cold and shivering or anything.
Sure.
So
I mean,
obviously
you might be if it's properly chucking it, but
yeah, at night obviously it gets colder. But and my friend asked me to go and see Pearl Jam on Saturday.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought, but they cancelled.
Oh, really? Oh,
I know.
Damn.
Due to like illness, and they're not even rescheduling it. So anyway, so I didn't go to see Pearl Jam, but I'm going to see the Manic Street Preachers next week in Cardiff Castle.
Manics is another one of those where I get they're hugely important to a lot of people, but to me, they've never sat right. Like they're not. I don't know what it is. Like they're just.
That's fine.
Yeah.
They have that kind of South Wales working class thing. So I'm going to see them in Cardiff Castle the day after a giant Labour victory. So so I'm hoping that will be a good atmosphere.
I think Manics just sound a bit like whiny to me, like as in it's like everything's really terrible. No, why don't you do something about it?
That's what people say about the Smiths and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you tolerate this, then your children will be next.
Can I have a better future, please? There's
a bit of satire in there, isn't there? A Design for Life, stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah. Motorcycle emptiness. Yeah. She is suffering. Yeah. It's a vibe.
Yeah, not for me. Not for me, the Manics. I'm always interested to I'll scan through and see if there's any what the dance acts are up to and stuff like that, because it's class though. There's always often some
there's just
surprising
some
stuff going on. Yeah,
I think I haven't seen it, but there's a Jamie XX set. But you don't like him, do you?
He's all right. I got. Yeah. He's not my cup. He's not my go-to, but like I can appreciate what he does, but not, it's not the sort of thing I would, go to. I wouldn't hunt to listen to XX.
Sure. I really like that In Color album. That's years old now, I guess. But yeah, I think there's supposed to be a sequel to it coming out soon. I don't know. Oh, I saw Norman Cook was on stage with what's his name, Mike Heaton or whatever, from like half the House Martins, playing bass. Presumably he'll pop up and do a Fatboy Slim set at some point somewhere.
I mean, he still puts the odd track out, like he still does stuff. Like, okay, it's not his Fatboy Slim, like it's not anything like the glory days of that, but some stuff still comes out every now and then. Mostly just like straight dance bangers these days, or that's what he's going for. Ever since like Eat, Sleep, Rave, Repeat, right? Like everything's kind of been in that vibe since he put that out. Give me some gangster tripping any day.
Big beat.
Needs more trumpets.
No, I mean, that's Rob's opinion about basically any music.
Add more brass.
Get horn.
Isn't that what Graham Coxon hated about those big Blur songs? Get rid of too much fucking brass in
too much horn.
House. Yeah. Kind of agree with him there.
Well, yeah, because it does, like in some of the bit, like really, really could happen. It's like you can't really hear the guitar part at all because it's all brass.
I guess
it's all brass.
He's playing. Yeah.
It's all brass. Oh, what else is going on? How is everyone? You're good? You enjoying a hot week?
No. Unsurprisingly.
Yeah. It's not even that hot. It's just
not today. No, today's fine.
It was ridiculous, and I'm like, I was feeling really. It was like I was feeling it being hot, and then I was looking at the weather to see like when's it going to get cooler again because I need to go places at some point.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the weather, and I'm like, it's only 26.
Yeah, I know.
And the funny thing is that like I was talking to my friend in Finland, and whenever they talk about how hot it is, you automatically think, like, Finland, their hot must be not that hot,
like
right?
12.
Yeah. But actually, because of the weird way the climate works with, like, the sea and everything, by now, they're already hitting, like, 30.
Huh.
And I'm like, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Should be allowed to have Finland be over 30 degrees.
I mean, Finland is permanently sunny, right? And snowy. That's how it works, right? Inland.
And we were the ones that meant to get, like, the Gulf Stream and all that shit. We are hotter than average for the latitude.
Yeah.
But there are other ridiculous microclimates.
Yeah, we haven't had
just our one.
We haven't had a lot of that this year, which is good. Like, I'm not complaining, but the sunny days haven't been the absolute worst. Like, we haven't hit the high 30s.
Well, I mean, we haven't had more than like 2 or 3 at once yet. Yeah. That's when it will actually get hot.
It's so weird, isn't it? It's like Baltic is literally shorthand for freaking freezing, isn't it?
Yeah. Positively Baltic, Gary.
Yeah, Gary.
I can't even remember what that quote's from. It's like some advert for something. It's positively Baltic, Gary.
Well, if it's a fake commentator, it was probably like a Tacker advert or something.
Probably. I think it might have been a beer ad of some description.
Also possible. Or beef or something.
Beef. Like you thinking like, well, it wouldn't be Gary, but like the beefy and lammy.
Yeah, exactly. Similar concept.
Yeah. So the heat caused a few moments. Well, one major moment of annoyance last weekend. I should say.
A story that Robert's been hyping up for 2 weeks for us.
It's not that hype. I just thought like it's podcast content worthy, just because. Okay. Like these days, like, and as you sort of ease into dad life a bit more, I like the amount of time you get to actually do what you want is diminished a bit, and it's
Definitely.
yeah, like you play fewer games, you play fewer things, and it's like. And I can't complain too much because obviously it affects Gnome more than me because Badger is still quite mum-centric, so he's that way. So like, but Gnome does have a tendency of like when I specifically carve out a block of time of it being demolished in some way by like no you're on Babs you're on baby duty. And it's like okay. So the first thing that happens is I had a day off, and it's like, and then Gnome forgets a laptop. Like goes to work and leaves a laptop at home, and it's like, can you bring me my laptop? And it's like, well, there goes a whole chunk of time as I become a courier service. That's a mild annoyance. I mean, I don't know if it's better or worse, like because it was my day off, right? Like there's a bit of me that's just like, it's just like, well. Yeah, it was my day off, so it didn't actually impact anything really, apart from me.
Yeah, apart from you. Yeah,
yeah. But then, like the following, like it was a pretty hot day, and she was in the middle of Woodbridge, and put Badger in the car to come back home, and gave him the car keys.
Why would you do that?
Uh-huh.
Why would you do that? That's a horrible mistake.
Uh-huh. Because you can guess what happened next.
He hijacked the car and went on a rampage.
Yeah.
Well, no,
He definitely hijacked the car.
Well, he locked himself in the car.
Yes.
And so hot dog syndrome started to become a problem. So then here's me. Here comes Gubbins here, like to do a round trip with a spare key to literally save my child. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I was the kind of raging where I can't say anything. Like if any word leaves my being, it would be probably marriage destroying. You know, it's. I was beyond, like, it's just because as you said, like, it's just how did you, like, giving him the keys, like, on one level I kind of sort of like get, because it's like, okay, if he's busy with that, he's not being a pain in the ass, and he's not and he's crying, right, but then shutting the door and creating a real potential problem.
Well, right. I mean, like, what? Well, where were you going to at that point? Like,
I mean, I wasn't there, right? So it's like, right. This is the only reason, like, we could get out of this situation quickly, you know, within a semi-reasonable time frame, is because I was still at home, and I could, and I get a phone call being like, "Bring the spare key."
Well, sure, but I mean, like, why would you not be in the car? And then leaving the child, but then not taking the car keys with you to lock the door as you go.
Yeah, because you put him in the car seat, right? You have to do that whole faff. You're putting him in the car.
So did this happen in the small time period between him being in the car, close that door, and then you're going to open the door and get in?
Walk around, yeah. That must have been it, right? Yeah, that must have been the time frame. I mean, as I say, I wasn't there.
Still doesn't really make sense why you'd give him the keys, though, for that short period of time there, because you're going to need them back in a second.
Well, I mean, you don't, because they're in the car, well, right? True. That's all you need. Like, you only need them to be in the car.
You would think the car should be able to tell whether they're in the back seat or not. That would be a useful feature.
I mean, yeah, probably. It's like, why are they there? Like, I'm not going to lock while they're there. I mean, the Jag does some useful stuff where it won't let you lock the car it doesn't let you lock the car when it knows the keys are in it.
Sure.
So if you walked away for it and tried to do the thing that I normally do, where I actually push the button on the handles on my Jag and to get them to lock, because by the time I've stepped out of it, my keys are still in my pocket. I might have something in my hands, and it's actually easier to push the button on the car, on the physical button on the car to lock it, and it won't let you do that if the keys are in the car. And it's like, so actually this problem wouldn't have been a problem in the Jag. And even if you had managed to lock it, you can unlock it from your phone. So it's like, can't happen in that car.
That's another situation of smart modern technology being too smart. If you'd had a physical key, the problem would have solved.
Maybe, yeah.
Because you wouldn't have been able to give it to the child.
A central locket, yeah. Anyway, that was my tale of woe. Yeah, as I said, that was a level of rage that I don't.
So, what would have been
the
technology that would have saved this situation? Right, something that prevented this.
Just something that the car must know that the keys are in it, right? And otherwise, cars like that don't actually run, or they shouldn't run. So they just needed like a software choice to be like the keys are in the car, therefore don't lock.
Or just lock. Well, I mean, the better way to do it, because it was being locked from inside the car, which implies that someone was in the car pushing the button to lock the doors, which is a thing you might want to do.
You might want to do, but there are buttons in the car for that, right?
Sure, but you're not necessarily going to use those. You might use the ones on the keys.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think the higher technology way of doing it would be like have actual physical detection of where people are in the car. So you can tell whether it's a child.
Maybe, Did the child lock the door by pressing the button on the
keys? Is that what happened?
Yeah, on the key? Yeah. 100%. That's what he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need like just a weight detector on each seat to determine whether it's a human adult or a child.
I mean, they do already have that, right, to determine whether or not you're wearing a seatbelt.
Sure.
Right. They if you put something on the seat of enough weight, it goes. And the seatbelt's not clicked in, you'll get an annoying warning saying, you should probably sort that out. Whether it's human or not.
Yeah.
That will happen. Even for doggos, I suppose. You should probably put a seatbelt on that doggo.
Maybe.
But anyway, that was my adventures in parenting.
What about the stupid Tesla dog mode? Would that have helped? Isn't there?
Maybe, yeah, because I could have at least like climate controlled it from afar, I guess, and be like, I can cool him down,
keep him alive in his entrapment.
But then I could unlock a Tesla from afar as well, so it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, just not the right car for that situation.
Tale of sadness and woe. Anyway, I'm glad you managed to get out of that situation without any trouble.
It was convenient I wasn't otherwise occupied by anything important other than,
your day off.
Okay. This event wasn't on the day off. It was the laptop thing that was on the day off. It was a Sunday morning. So. But
it would have turned out better for you if you hadn't had a spare key, and then you would have had to had a locksmith go and do it or whatever.
No, you'd break a window.
Well, you would, yes.
Yeah, you'd break a window at that point.
For that immediateness, but eventually you'd have to have some kind of fixing to that. Plus, everyone always says you break a window, but it's not as easy as you think.
Oh no.
No, probably need that.
Well, we did have a like one of the people that were there is a friend of ours who is a bit of a, he's mechanically inclined, shall we say. So he might, be able to pick out one of those sort of like point tools that are designed for this sort of job, or
well, I would imagine that if there was a crowd of people in the vicinity of this happening, someone would have one of those emergency kits.
Someone would know what to do. Yeah. Anyway, don't leave hot dogs or badgers in cars.
Don't give them the keys. Don't give your baby the keys for the car.
Yeah, that's probably wise anyway. I mean, I'm just thinking, when I was a kid, actually, my parents would do that. They would give me the keys to the car just because I liked sitting in it and playing car.
Yeah, but I think you were old enough to understand the concept.
Not to turn the engine on, yeah. So I knew that. You
weren't just randomly mashing buttons because it was a shiny thing in your hand.
No. I knew that I wanted to go in and play.
Those car keys even have buttons?
No, they probably
not. Physical keys that you have to put into the specific socket in order to turn on the engine.
Yeah, back then that's how it would have been. But I knew not to do that, at least, so I didn't. But I would still probably annoy anyone driving by putting indicators on.
Sure.
Because I'm a child and it's what I want to do. I want the flashy lights. Definitely couldn't get away with that now. You probably shouldn't do that. Probably shouldn't put your child in a car with a key that could start it.
Well, yes, that kind of key, certainly. That's why they need the weight detection. Should very easily be able to detect if there's not an adult person in the driver's seat.
Right, yeah. Or maybe they can't because the way some people put their feet on the floor. I don't know. But then in most cars, I suppose you have both feet lifted for pedal usage to a certain degree, so it's probably good enough. But then are you being sizist, yeah. Against very, very thin models or dwarves.
Petite models. It needs to be adjustable, clearly.
Or just like it should be like some kind of setting where this is getting a bit too much technology, but like you basically log into your car with accounts for every person in it.
That's the child is in the car, right? Isn't it? Where it automatically, if you come equipped, right, that it adjusts the seat and everything.
Yeah, some cars will do that, and at one point the Jag kind of apparently the software would do that based on what key you brought to it, but it wouldn't like automatically adjust the seat. I don't think still, but there was some profiling stuff you could do on it, and they decided to take all that out for some reason, like in a software update later. So either it didn't work very well, and they were just like, let's solve the problem by not having it anymore. Or what? I don't really know. But I think Teslas do that.
Just need to give everyone an NFT. Not an NFT. The other kind of NFT.
Is it NFC?
NFC, yeah, I guess.
An NFC chip or something, yeah. Just implant it in your hand so you can go over.
Everyone gets their own amiibo and tap it to enter the car.
Especially if it's like looks like you. That would be kind of rad.
Nintendo clearly.
If you could have Mii's.
There was no overlap between Mii's and amiibos, really. But if you could have it would be like how you could make custom Xbox controllers. You can upload your Mii and then it would just create the physical version of that as an amiibo.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Because the closest they got, I suppose, to that were the Mii Fighter amiibos from Smash. But yeah, this is a podcast about video games. We did it. We got there.
Yep.
I reckon you could put. I wonder if anyone's ever put one of those RSA hard tokens in them, or a jewelry of some kind instead of having
people definitely have. People have embedded the NFC chips from their bank card into their hand so they can just waft it over things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which actually does sound pretty cool. but then it expires, then you got to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it you just dissolve the card in acetone and you end up with just the chip, tiny chip, and the aerial, which is like a wire, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That picks up the actual.
So you have to.
So you then
put it in.
That. Yeah. Sufficient random. I think it's time for video games because there has been some news.
Well, I'm going to carry on the random just a little bit, but in a video gamey sort of way.
We're going to have our media section.
Well, not really. Arcade update, I'm going to say. Arcade update, because I've been in Great Yarmouth, and, they actually have quite a lot of arcades in Great Yarmouth. And they... I played. It's a sort of what you've been playing, but it's in sort of travel. Who's travelled to Great Yarmouth play arcade?
So we do it at the start of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of twist it a little bit. I think, because I played their new. They made another Daytona at some point.
Did they?
There was Sega.
Sega, yeah, right. But AM2.
Well, probably not. I don't think AM2 exists as an entity, but they at some point a new Daytona came about. I think it's called Daytona Championship Edition or something, which is and it's kind of weird because it's modernized. It's got slightly modernized graphics, but it's trying to go for that. It's not super modern graphics at the same time. It's trying to retain some of the old Daytona charm and brightness.
Yeah,
it doesn't really succeed. You can't really beat that old System 2 and System 3 arcade look. But it's Model. Was it Model 2 and Model 3? Yeah, I forget. Anyway, you can't really recapture that. But they try. They like use music from the Daytona 2001 version of the game, the Dreamcast release. So they're using music for that, and it's like I don't know how much of this was intentional, but like naturally it's an arcade machine, so not everything worked. So like on one of the pods, like the game didn't seem to have sound effects as far as there was no engine noise or anything like that. There was just music playing. So we weren't quite sure like whether the speakers were whether the engine noises were supposed to be coming out of speakers mounted in the chairs that weren't working, or and it was only the speakers in front were only playing the music and things like that. Like it wasn't quite right. And the force feedback on one side was a bit weird as well. But ultimately, it's Daytona, just in a strange new packaging. It had the 3 original courses, but it also had the 3 original courses mirrored with different aesthetics. Like it would be the same track, just in a different place. Weirdly, like it's kind of strange. But they made another Daytona. It's weird. It's weird that it even exists. Like. What's even weirder to me is that we found there was a Grid arcade machine. Now, I had no idea this existed.
What?
I mean, like Codemasters Grid, the first one.
Okay.
And Sega made this happen. Apparently, it's a Sega and Codemasters joint, and it's a weird thing because it is Grid 1 with the next gen filter and everything, so everything's brown, and a less than ideal frame rate. It's weird. Like, why did they even put this out? Like my PC at the time, like would run Grid at a very healthy 60 plus frames a second, and this arcade machine that they put out, they just clearly didn't put a powerful enough PC in this thing. What a strange thing to exist. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Why not do it? Like Grid is kind of is a fun sort of, I guess, somewhere in the middle between realism and simulation and arcade kind of feeling racer, somewhere in the middle of that. So why wouldn't it make sense? But it doesn't. It doesn't. It's like it's sort of let down by the cabinet itself, and the fact that it hasn't aged well by being brown.
The brownness of the period.
I also played a light gun game that I've never played before. They had 2 light gun games there that I'd never seen before. One of them was called Fast Gunman, which is a little bit reminds me of like Smash and Crash, which was like a Namco game that actually used it was the one with the cup. Do you remember the cup? Like the cup arcade game where like they would put targets up and you'd shoot those, and then for the final round, and it was about quickfire, and then for the final round it would put a cup in the middle of the arena and you'd shoot it and the cup would smash. But it's not really smashing. It would use like clever mirrors and polystyrene pieces that it would throw in to make it like very convincingly look like you just smashed a cup with a light gun. It was kind of cool thing. But yeah, so this was doing it with like bottles that would just like rotate forwards and backwards, like they'd replace them with like a model of a bottle with a smashed model of a bottle, but like very unconvincingly because they didn't like flip over fast enough. But the one advantage this machine has is like because it was physical, the bottles had a sensor on them where you were supposed to hit them, and of course the gun itself just straight up has a laser in it.
Yeah,
so it's 100% accurate, like no drift at all, because it's not possible. That's just I suppose the laser in the gun might not be straight, but yeah, that was kind of an interesting challenge on its own because it does require quite a bit of quite decent accuracy from the gun, and it's you have limited bullets for each round and stuff like that, so it's forcing you to be accurate, probably more than it's forcing you to be fast. So that was kind of fun on its own terms. Like I quite enjoyed that. Very simple. It's not Time Crisis, but just as a something different to do. Kind of neat. And the other thing I saw that is also pretty disappointing in a weird way. So, like months ago on this podcast, I talked about. I think I tried something called Wild Gun, which was like a Texan or cowboy shootout game, kind of bad, very cheap, but like you could play it with a Sinden as a light gun game. There's an arcade of that, and it's called Wild West Shootout. It's got a different name, but and a slightly different formula, but it is the same game, and they actually did make that into an arcade machine. And I don't know which came first anymore. I don't know whether the iPad/Steam version, probably the iPad Steam version came first, and then someone looked at it and thought, we can turn that into an arcade machine in the same way that Crossy Road is a bloody arcade machine now.
Maybe that kind of makes sense as an arcade game.
Kind of, I guess. It's a ticket game, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I found that kind of weird. And this arcade didn't just have one of those; it had two of them for some reason, like at opposite ends of the building. Modern arcades are kind of strange. But that's my arcade update. Like, I also went to a Wall of Death because it happened to be the wheels of. What was it? The Festival of Wheels at Yarmouth this weekend. So they had a whole bunch of like cool old cars out and stuff like that, like old Cadillacs and like rat rod kind of vehicles, and a Vauxhall with Hatsune Miku on the side for some reason. It ran the gamut. Orange Ford Capris, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
It was pretty cool to see those kind of cars. And then they had a Wall of Death, and I'm like. And I mean the classic Wall of Death, like a wooden bowl that motorcycles ride up. And I didn't think that would be like all that impressive to see, but I saw it and I came away impressed. Like that was awesome. It's actually pretty cool. You have to have an affinity for the smell of gasoline because it's an enclosed space and it really smells like 1920s bikes, because that's exactly what they are.
Wow.
I mean, most fucking fairground rides smell like that. Because
gasoline?
Kind of. It's oil, not necessarily gasoline in the fairground rides case, but it is that same metal and oil.
But I came away from that feeling
also
more...
wood, I suppose.
And wood, yes. I came away from that feeling more impressed than I was, because the whole thing is kind of wobbling a bit because it's a wooden construction, and it's as these bikes go around it, and at one point 3 abreast, and I thought, like, okay, that takes quite a lot of control to manage. Like, and one guy nearly losing it a couple of times, and we're like, whoa! It was pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool. So now I've done some things. I've seen a Wall of Death. There you go. And I've played newish Daytona. Check. That's my random section over. There you go.
How do you think, I mean, at what point I suppose you can just replace everything on a 1920s bike and have it be basically good as new, right? But at what point is it just no longer viable to drive a 100-year-old bike around a wooden
I don't know. Do they like
Wall of Death?
Yeah, I suppose. I assume it has to be the same engines, I guess, but maybe they're just very well maintained. But
well, I think the idea is that, like, at a certain age, it becomes possible to just make parts yourself, because that's how it was.
Perhaps,
it's like not like modern cars where where no one can get parts for them as soon as they're like 5 years old because the manufacturer stopped making them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to forge them pretty precisely for them to work in like a combustion engine, right?
I'm sure that's not actually that difficult. It was the 1920s.
But you still need a pretty precision mold in which to.
I mean, not a mold, almost certainly.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if you're replacing any part of an engine, right, it will be like pistons, probably, all the. I mean,
that's a lathe, right?
On metal.
Yeah, metal lathe. What is surprising about that? That's how lathes work.
I suppose. I assumed they just sort of cast them, but I guess you could be right. Probably that's what I mean. They probably wouldn't actually directly forge that metal, I suppose.
You're not probably going to be pouring molten metal exactly in that way.
I don't know why. Yeah, I suppose you're right. I don't know why I thought that. Anyway, we've probably got better machines to make them now, I guess.
Well, that too. Yeah. You maybe probably actually could forge it now, just like electromagnetically melt it and
maybe, yeah. Anyway, there you go. My random section's over.
It's time for video game news.
News.
What one?
Well, the big thing is Nintendo suddenly turned up
at last, as we've all been waiting for.
Yep. And they did a proper direct, not an indie showcase or anything like that.
In which they specifically said no Switch 2.
Yeah, I mean, we knew going into this. No, we're not. Yeah, they had said previously, no, we're not announcing whatever is coming next.
Which is kind of ridiculous because they're like, we've been waiting for that for so long, and there's been so many rumors, and every time we're like, oh, obviously they're going to talk about it in the next direct. It's like, nope.
No, yeah. At least they were upfront about it. I mean, they weren't super. I think they said it in like was it an investor call or something? But it wasn't happening, so it wasn't like it was announced that they weren't doing whatever. We're not talking about whatever's next, which is the worst kept secret in video games at the moment.
Yeah, but also then leads to the problem not talking about any specific game just yet, but the problem of like any game where the release date is like 2025, you're like, is that Switch 2 then?
Yeah, is that a Switch 2 game now? Yeah.
Is that a Switch 2 launch title?
Well, yeah. Or is it cross-gen in some way?
Well, I mean, we've always been assuming that it is just going to be cross-gen, right? Everything's just going to run on both.
It's just going to run better. And an enhanced version in some way.
Yeah.
I completely think that's the same thing. All right, so here's my highlights from the Nintendo Direct. Here we go. Mario and Luigi, as in the series Mario and Luigi, is back.
Extremely weirdly.
What do you mean by extremely weirdly?
Well, like the developer went bankrupt, got shut down, and then Nintendo were like, yeah, we don't want all these Mario RPGs, we only want one, so we're only going to make Paper Mario. And then apparently they have completely reversed that position.
Yeah.
And just made another team make Mario and Luigi now. I mean, presumably an internal one, because there was no developer called out.
No, it's a good point, actually. But then
which
Nintendo
might actually make it really cool.
Nintendo don't really call out there, like...
Well, they do if it was, like Alpha Dream making the original Mario and Luigi's, or Intelligent Systems for all the Fire Emblem stuff.
Sure, yeah, I suppose you're right.
But yeah, if this is a Nintendo internal team doing the Mario and Luigi concept, this could be really cool.
I mean, yeah.
And it already looks really cool.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job of like...
taking that style and making it properly...
Polygonizing it, yeah. I mean, I haven't played any of the previous ones, but I've seen you play a little bit of them, and they have always looked cool.
The only worry about it really is that, like, if it is a Nintendo internal team who are now taking up the Mario and Luigi concept, I guess, that RPG battle system and all that, it would be a very Nintendo thing to do to, like, make the most basic version of that on their first attempt.
Right, yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Like, as in, it's not something they're 100% comfortable with yet.
Yeah.
So the training wheels might be on.
Yeah, it might turn out to be, like, kind of simple and not really advancing the concepts any further than it always did.
That would be the most Nintendo-like solution. But
yes.
I guess if you were talking about other developers, then they might go the other way, right? They might put we've put our own spin on it, and thus it's bad in that way.
Well, sure, but I don't think they were ever going to change, like, the basic concepts, like the bros moves and all that stuff.
Sure. Well, and it's basically what Paper Mario used to be, almost, style combat.
Well, that's what it always was, though. That's what Mario and Luigi always was.
Well, and that's what I mean, but I mean it in the sense that, like, Paper Mario moved away from that, right? And then Mario Luigi kind of filled that gap.
Apart from Paper Mario started to come back to that recently, where they were like, they realised that people didn't like Sticker Star and all that stuff.
Well, was the paint one...
Colour Splash.
Colour Splash, was that going back?
No.
No?
Well...
Are we just talking about a remake here? So, like, Paper Mario remake?
Well, I mean, obviously that as well, where they're like, we released the one that people actually like.
And
they also released, Mario RPG as well. In the time of the turnaround from, like, we only want one Mario RPG to be like, no, actually we want all of them again.
We're going to release 3 of them in 2 years.
Yeah.
It is strange, isn't it? Like,
and it's coming out this year. which is fairly ridiculous.
It is fairly ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, it's in line with Nintendo's normal announce strategy, though, right? Isn't
Well,
it?
yeah,
Like,
not really announcing anything until it's almost done.
yeah. I haven't put it on the list, but that just reminded me of, like, how do you feel about Luigi's Mansion HD? Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, I should say. Yeah.
I mean, they had to do it to complete the
They
set.
had to do it.
They'd already done one, and you have 3, obviously, but like, obviously, you're going to want to put 2 onto a console.
I mean, 2 looks like a lower effort remake, I suppose.
Well, because they didn't have to do as much work.
I mean, there is work there. There's definitely new geometry. There's definitely new, the models are all updated. There's definitely work there, but it is more of a 1-for-1. It's probably for the better.
Yeah.
I want to kind of done like some control tweaks to it.
I don't think it would. Well, I mean, it'll probably just use the Luigi's Mansion 3 controls, which because when you were playing it with the 3DS, obviously because it only had one stick, you had
right because it came out before new 3DS. Yes.
You had you used the face buttons to basically angle up. You had you naturally shot forwards, but then if there was anything above you, you hold down a button and you just shoot up. It was a bit bit like Yoshi's Island almost. Right. You just aim up.
It had an egg button.
Yeah, pretty much. But then I was trying to remember if there was much 3D in that game on the 3DS.
Oh, right, if there was anything that required it.
I wouldn't have necessarily said required, but maybe there was. It's kind of a Luigi's Mansion thing in general, but you're going to be looking through holes at things in rooms.
Sure.
And obviously with the 3D,
that would look cool.
Yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I don't remember whether there was necessarily any puzzling stuff that required the 3D.
Right, like was it Mario Land? Or what the 3D Mario? What was that one called? Anyway, the Mario game on 3DS. Super Mario 3D Land.
Yes.
3D.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. 3D Land. Yeah.
Yeah, because that had some rooms where it explicitly says turn the 3D on because all the blocks look. You can't tell where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I don't really remember if there was any of that in that game.
I mean, that could have easily been solved by if they wanted to port that up to Switch by letting you move the camera if there was anything like that. But
Sure, but that's not the same effect.
No, it's not the same effect.
What's the best Luigi's Mansion game?
I mean, I haven't played 2 and 3, but I do have a fondness for 1.
For 1, right?
Because of its simplicity.
And I basically haven't played 1. I played a tiny bit of it, but I played 2 and 3. But I would have said I like 2 more, but 3 is just a better game overall.
Right.
A more solid game. Okay. Not necessarily better in mechanics or whatever, or layouts or any of that stuff.
But sort of a polish.
But I like 2's I like 2. Well, I like 2 because it was still Luigi's Mansion and not like Luigi's Hotel, which 3 is. Right. It made more sense then. You had multiple mansions in 2 and they had different aesthetics. And it was like that kind of. I mean, it's still ridiculous, but it kind of makes sense. But then when you go to this weird hotel where the different floors have different aesthetics, it's like, well, this is Luigi's Hotel.
Yeah. Hotel Luigi, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about toast or something.
Toast.
Hotel Luigi. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
I mean,
literally in that game, you can't leave.
I mean, it's
you just lock the doors.
It is a way of making the year of Luigi last forever, I suppose. You can't leave. So we got to see that. Zach and I were talking a little bit about before the podcast about something from Squeenix, a new JRPG. Well, I suppose that's not all that surprising when you put Squeenix and new JRPG together. They have been churning them out recently, but
and for the past 40 years.
I don't know. It feels like they're on a specific run at the moment, right? Of Square returning to classic JRPG formats. Fantasian Neo Dimension is apparently like a Switch port of what was a Apple Arcade exclusive from several years ago that like nobody knew about. just a thing that was there that nobody cared about.
Because it was Apple Arcade, obviously.
Because it was Apple Arcade, yeah. But this thing actually looks kind of cool, and I'm kind of intrigued. I mean, they got my attention by saying, by the way, guys, Sakaguchi and Uematsu are working on this thing, and I'm like, tell me more. Like, you brought together the dream team. And it does look kind of interesting. Like, okay, you're gonna have to remind me what that word was. What was it? The
dimension.
The dimension. There you go.
What's the dimension?
Well, so this game has like its combat mechanic involves like it's a bit spatial, right? Things line up and organize themselves, and you have attacks that do like can be curved or do damage in lines and things like that. So. There is a benefit potentially to not fighting every enemy you encounter at once, and you can
except do fight them all at once. Well, not fighting every enemy you.
Sorry, other way around. Sorry, don't fight them as you encounter them, and instead you send them to the dimension, and you can then choose to fight them when at your leisure. But then all of them are there in this dimension at once. So you're using the advantage of your spatial magic, I suppose, to do more damage all at one time. And that's kind of neat, I suppose, because in a weird way, like surely that must reduce the aggravation of random battles, because you can be like, well, I'll just batch them all up.
Sure. Unless it does get ridiculous, where it's like if you stock up too many, it just makes the battle impossible. You're like, whoops, I screwed myself.
It seemed like the dimension had a limit, right?
Sure.
So it's like presumably they will balance that, so it's not impossible. But like, I guess there's an element of you can make it hard for yourself by doing that all the time.
Yeah. Maybe that is the intention, where it's like it's a difficulty thing where you're figuring out what your level is. How many monsters can I stack up and still reasonably fight this fight?
And maybe that's a stat that upgrades, right? How many your dimension capacity?
Maybe.
I love that word though. Dimension. That's genius. That is genius. This thing looks kind of cool. As in a sort of. Like I asked Zach whether it was perhaps pushing that Bravely Default button for you. Like,
yeah, maybe. Although the reason Bravely Default worked is it was more of a classic style. Yeah. Whereas this is kind of weird, but that could be cool as well. It's
classic-ish, isn't it? Yeah, it's classic with a twist, with something new, or newish, I suppose. Like I guess I'm assuming the phone version of this must have used like finger gestures to perform the curving, potentially, or the throwing.
It's just like a regular bend curve thing, right?
But yeah, presumably the control was like on the touchscreen, I guess, and you were like bend it over here this way, which can be replicated with like a here's where it's going line, or here's your intent line. But look kind of neat. We're getting a Donkey Kong Country game.
You nearly said new.
I nearly said new, yep. Well, it's newish because it's an HD version of Donkey Kong Country Returns. Which, I guess you could only ever play that on the Wii, right? So re-releasing it makes sense?
They should do I don't know, they should give the value and just do both that and Tropical Freeze.
Yeah, I know.
But no, they have to.
Nintendo won't do that.
Money.
Yeah, won't be like Nintendo don't do HD collection games. Like the only time we got that was that weirdly limited Mario one, right? Where it's like here's 64 and Sunshine and whatever the third
Galaxy.
one was. Yeah,
that
Galaxy.
would be killer if they did both, right?
Yeah, I mean,
one pack.
Why wouldn't
that would
you?
be such good value.
I mean, okay, I say Nintendo haven't done that before, but we did get Prime Trilogy, right? I guess that wasn't. They weren't remakes. That was just like every game bundled together, like, with some weeness added to some weeness added to the first two games. But not but it's generally not a thing for them to do bundle collections.
Yeah.
But yes, they should have done that. I'm with you.
Yeah,
and in fairness,
it feels like this game is maybe
they wouldn't have,
a tad old.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have had to do anything to Tropical Freeze, right? Because that was a Wii U game, so it was already HD.
Yeah, exactly. Just port it.
Like, yeah, and it probably would have been dead simple for them to do. But I guess they think Donkey Kong Country has weight. Probably more weight than it really has. I mean, people really liked Tropical Freeze, but also, I don't know that it
didn't sell that.
I don't think it did. Yeah, I don't think it did numbers.
No.
Well, but here's the point where I roll back everything I say because it's Nintendo. It probably still did numbers relatively, just maybe not relative to Nintendo.
And also, it was a game that people liked on the Wii U, which there weren't many of.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, that might be part of the problem.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll re-release it eventually as its own. It's probably be an HD update on the Switch 2.
4K.
4K. Tropical Freeze.
Tropical Freeze 4K.
But yeah, fine.
Okay, so up next we had a mystery dungeon-like game called The New Denpa Men that I am so confused about. Okay, not the mystery dungeon part. That's pretty much a given. We kind of know that formula. But what on earth is Denpa Men? They just look like strange, not Mii's, but not Funko Pops. What? This?
It's just Japan doing Japan things. Really.
Yeah, I mean, is Denpa Man an existing brand?
Probably. It's probably something we don't know about.
I'm collecting men for my party.
That was kind of weird when there's catch the rare men.
It's pretty funny. Does this mean they should have done a Pokemon Red and Blue, right? They should have had the new Denpa men and then the new Denpa women. That would be there. It is weird that it's just men. It is weird.
That might just be a translation problem.
Maybe. Denpa man. So there's that. They're making a new Super Mario Party.
Good job finishing that sentence there.
I had a pause. I had an awkward pause. They're making a Super Mario Party.
They're making a Mario Party.
Well, because the last Mario
they just
Party
started randomly
was called
attaching Super to Mario games. That's it doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, the last Mario Party game was called Super Mario Party. So now the sequel to Super Mario Party is Super Mario Party Jamboree.
Right. Are we getting Super Mario Kart next or something for the next one instead of Mario Kart 9?
Wasn't the original Super Mario Kart?
Yeah, I think so.
The SNES one.
But that doesn't mean
because
they can't
it
do
was
it
on
again.
the Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So everything has to be Super on the SNES.
Which is weird why they just decided to start doing that now with all their games.
Yeah, it is a little funky. Yes, Super Mario there. I can't even say it. Anyway, they've got 5 new boards. The normal numbers apply, right? 5 new board gamey bits. 2 classic boards coming back. Only 2. So,
Continues to suck.
Continues to suck.
How do you not put more content in these things? The board parts. And then they always claim that they're the most mini games ever, and then they never attach a number to that part.
No.
Because
well, they've made that claim again, like most mini games ever in a Mario Party, but and also the biggest Mario Party because they're doing a whole bunch of other modes now, including a Fall Guys-esque mode.
Yeah, the Battle Royale of Mario Party,
but only for 20 players, so it's not a huge number of.
That is quite a lot.
Well, it depends how it works because the clips they've shown of that looks like you're kind of doing solo games rather than.
Yeah, it looks like there's probably It looks like because they do show one where everyone is in it, but that feels
one mini game when they're running down.
That feels like there's going to be a few of those, and that will be the big finale or whatever.
Maybe,
after you've been doing the solo games as you progress around the fake board.
Yeah, maybe it gives you a head start or something. But the actual lead up is actually entirely pointless, and it's all about the final round.
Well, that's Mario Party though.
Yeah, that's Mario Party. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't played one of these for a while, and I kind of liked the look of the last one, at least. I don't know how well people reviewed it, or because people have just got a bit bored of Mario Party, right? So it's hard to judge whether they're good anymore. I mean, it's not the one where everyone was in the same cart, which is clearly the bad one.
Well, yes.
There's a lot of Mario Party games. I don't know anymore. Now here's one where I can pause in an awkward place and get away with it. They're making a new Legend of Zelda game. Just not Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom or that lineage.
They've already made a horrible mistake by not calling it Legend of Link.
Oh, I mean, yes, they should, because yeah, like, this game's twist is you're not playing as Link, you're playing as Zelda. For once.
For the first time.
Yeah. Well, not actually for the first time. For the first time in an entire game, I guess.
Yeah. The first time in a game that's actually just called The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
But they're using the Link's Awakening remake aesthetic.
Which I still kind of don't like, annoyingly. Because I'd probably like this game more if it didn't look like that.
I don't mind it. I think it's all right. There's like some people like to like think that the eyes, right, are just kind of like a bit too Funko Poppy, right? Like, a bit dead and soulless, and they've seen the void, and the void looked back.
Well, in this game, apparently they have.
Yeah.
Right. Do you like the Link Between Worlds, as in updated Link to the Past aesthetic, better?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, Link Between Worlds looked great.
Yeah. Because this is the equivalent of that, right? They no longer have like the big 3D ones on the console and then the smaller ones on the mobile because they're the same thing. So now you have to have two parallel things on the same machine.
Yeah, I know I've been quoting Carl Bosman a lot in most episodes recently, but he described it as they make a console-ish one, and this is their handheld-ish one.
Handheld-ish one, yeah.
Because they need to fill both niches still, or at least that's how Nintendo works.
Even though it's the same machine. But that's basically how everything's gone, right? With indie games and everything. And Steam Deck. You can play whatever big 3D thing on your Steam Deck, or you can play your indie style game.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the one thing that they need to address with this one is that hopefully it doesn't have the performance problems that Link's Awakening
obviously you want to fix that.
Did. But I don't know. Presumably it's exactly the same. Presumably it's the same engine and all that stuff. So it's... Who knows whether they've actually made improvements.
But potentially with the mechanic that you're about to explain, you could cause more chaos.
Yeah. So, the whole thing is you're not really directly fighting enemies, or at least it didn't look like that in this. You're making echoes of things you've encountered. So, beds. Lots of beds in this trailer.
Yeah, that was the other thing that kind of, I was immediately like, that this is kind of ruining the whole concept already in their own footage, where it's like, you have all these, you can copy all these random items and use them to solve puzzles, except in like 3 different clips of their own footage, it's a pile of beds.
Yeah. Maybe they just didn't want to show more.
But that's the easiest solution to almost everything.
It's like if you need to cross a gap or go up, pile of beds.
Pile of beds, yeah. And each one of them you can rest in.
Yeah, that's weird.
So I guess you can just
sleep
wherever you want. Yeah. But yes, depending on how the summoning minions works, you could probably summon quite a lot. Because there doesn't seem to be any limits, right, on the Echo system. It's just make more of them.
They didn't really show enough to know how many did they even show existing at once? 5 maximum, probably.
They showed plenty of beds. At once.
Yeah, but that's 5. 5 or 6 beds in a stack.
So, I was never very good at the 2D sword play anyway, ever.
Right.
I prefer the... not that I'm amazing at the 3D sword play, but better than the 2D. Especially in Ocarina.
Yeah, just being able to spawn a bunch of enemies and let them do the fighting is probably...
Yeah. It's more puzzly as a result. It sounds cool.
And they put a hard date on it as well, so September 26th. Boom! Have your surprise Zelda game this year.
Yeah,
literally a Zelda game.
Yep.
She doesn't have the bomb tank though, so
well, yeah, she does have that mechanical Octorok thing that she picks up and just fires explosives all over the place. It's kind of similar.
Well, that's exciting. I'm excited to play that.
Could actually be good. Yeah. Although in fairness, I didn't play Link's Awakening. I've never played the original Link's Awakening. I think
I played it on the gameplay and then played so it's the thing for me was it's the same game. So I'd already, even though, I was playing it again.
I think Link Between Worlds is actually the only 2D Zelda I've ever played. I'm trying to think. I don't think I actually played Link to the Past, which is sacrilege, I know. And I really liked Link Between Worlds, so I probably should go play Link to the Past at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, Zach, you played freaking Oracle of Ages and Seasons.
Yep.
Did you play Minish Cap and shit like that?
No, I started Minish Cap like once and never got into it really, and I didn't play any of the Spirit Tracks or those handheld Zeldas.
Isn't Spirit Tracks supposed to be the bad one?
I forget which one's which in Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass.
Phantom Hourglass. Holy crap,
I think Spirit Tracks was the one people didn't like
because that was the second one, right?
Yeah.
Phantom Hourglass came first.
Yeah,
in that Wind Waker style mobile portable game.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't play any of those. So maybe I should. Well, unless you count
Four Swords.
Cadence of Hyrule.
Okay.
So there's that. And one more thing was, yes, we're still making Metroid Prime 4, but here's some footage this time. And boy, does that look like a Metroid Prime game.
It looks like a Metroid Prime.
Which I'm not unhappy about. It's not a particularly revelatory trailer. I don't think we really learnt anything at all other than, hey, you can scan a dying space pirate and not help them.
That's not learning anything. That's exactly how Metroid Prime is meant to work.
Exactly.
That's the one mechanic of Metroid Prime you need to show that it's Metroid Prime. It's scanning things.
You can scan pointless stuff that's not helpful. I mean, I'm not unhappy with what they showed. I mean, it looks like a Metroid game, but which is all I really want.
It also looks like a Switch game, which
that's
fine.
The thing. So Digital Foundry had a little look at it, didn't they? And we're like, yeah, this doesn't look like this is pushing anything that the current Switch can do. So it's.
I mean, people say the Prime update is maybe the best looking thing on the Switch. So
sure, yeah.
I saw people saying that they thought that this looks better than that.
I mean, there's scenes where there's a lot more going on, right? There's like a battle scene happening. So, like, if based on that alone, you could argue this is probably doing more than Prime Remastered ever did because it just wasn't in Prime, right? They didn't do that then.
Yeah.
2025. So it's still a ways off yet, but that 2025, I am hoping for the cross-gen-ness, right?
Switch 2 launch cross-gen style.
Come on, boy.
That means we've kept saying that they should clearly do it in March to line up with the original Switch's release date, but it's seeming less and less likely. Because they're still not talking about it. I would say that if you were going to have Metroid Prime have a date on it and the date was March, they probably would have said that in this one.
Perhaps, yeah.
You think
saying 2025 sounds like summer or later.
It could be, it could be a whole year away. But Nintendo don't. Yeah, I mean, Prime 4 is kind of a weird exception to Nintendo's normal rules, right? Because they know they announced it far too early, and then it went through a dev hell and had to be restarted.
But they never put a date on it.
They never put a date on it, no.
So at least they didn't accidentally screw that up in that way.
It's also not internally developed, right? So not that, I mean, it's as first party as you can get, I suppose, Retro, but it's not actually.
Is it Retro? Did Retro come back to work on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't think they were working on the first iteration.
No, that's why. That's why they were like, everyone was happy about it getting delayed because it's like, oh, they've actually got Retro again. Well, that probably means it's probably going to be good then.
Yeah. Retro know what they're doing. Or at least they should know what they're doing. It's been a while. It's been a while since Prime 3.
My problem now is I need to play 2 and 3 again.
Man, yeah, it did make me look at it and go like, oh, I need to play these again. And I might pick up Remastered because that Prime 1 is one hell of a game. And
I keep playing that on the GameCube, so I'm good on that front. That's the one I played way too much.
Yeah, and 2 and 3, whilst they're not up to the same, to me, they're not up the same level as Prime 1 or the impact that Prime 1 had. Right? I think there's something about being the first in the series where it's hard to. Maybe your nostalgia brain kicks in and it's just a little bit hard to beat a little bit. But 2 and 3 are still fantastic games, but they don't quite hit the same way for me.
But then the real problem with having to play 2 and 3 is do you keep waiting until Nintendo hoping that they release the remastered, or at least a re-release, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is they put Prime 1 on its own.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to get like a remastered collection. They're going to do 2 and 3 separately, would be my guess.
I guess.
And 3 is kind of an interesting one because of its Wii-centric controls.
Yeah.
Right? So if they were to remake that one, some work would need to happen.
But I mean, that would just be the opposite of the previous pack, where they put the Wii stuff into 1 and 2. Now they can un-Wii 3 and keep 1 and 2 the same.
Yeah. I mean, 3 had the problem where you would still lock onto stuff, but you still needed to sub-aim, I suppose, within that lock-on. You had to aim at weak spots because the lock-on wasn't.
I mean, that might not be too bad with 2 control sticks in a modern control system. Because once you've locked on, you're no longer looking around with the other sticks, so it can be like sub-aim, right?
You'd have to change the control system a bit because fire was on A, right, in those games. So it's
be really inconvenient to make it clicking the stick.
Yeah. Man, that would suck.
Yep.
But maybe they'd like banked on the fact it's like, hey, so many of our players play Splatoon. They're like, we can trust people to play dual stick now.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm sure the 4 is going to be that.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it clearly showed classic lock-on combat. So, and the only other game the only other game I can think of that has done it in the most similar way to that was Recore, of all things. I'm sure other games must have tried it, but anyway, that was the Nintendo Direct. Do you agree with the sentiment that people seem to have come away thinking, oh man, Nintendo's knocking it out of the park? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that they've had some.
I mean, new Zelda out of nowhere is pretty good.
It's pretty good, but you know what I mean. I don't think there's any like any this holiday absolute bangers.
Well, apart from Mario Luigi, potentially. That's the one that's, if it is good, it will be real good.
But I don't know that it's like mainstream Nintendo enough, if you know what I mean, for it to be called like an absolute banger of a direct. But it's still a sort of sub part of Nintendo. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't mean that in terms of quality, but in terms of perhaps the audience.
What? But then what is the limit on that? It's just like a mainline Mario game and a mainline Zelda game.
Perhaps, yeah. Or a Splatoon or a Smash. Or
Splatoon is not mainstream.
It is.
It's not.
It's huge.
Definitely not.
I mean, this
Splatoon's
is like
a phenomenon in Japan.
Pretty, for a late cycle kind of thing, it's pretty good, assuming they're gearing up for Switch 2,
holding back for Switch 2.
So it's pretty good if they're holding back for Switch 2. But if that's more than a year away, then it's not so good.
I mean, it's not a new Donkey Kong game, is what I'm saying.
Well,
that's what I mean.
But
that's why I was saying you could have just packed it in with Tropical Freeze, and that would have been more exciting.
I mean, they could have sort of said, "Hey, we're actually going to release that Mario collection in a non-limited fashion."
They've already deleted all the source code. Too late.
Yeah, bye. This will never happen again. You and your Giga Leak ruined it for everyone. Like, what if they did do the Mario 3D Land and 3D World for Switch? Because they're still absent, aren't they, from Switch?
Yeah, but that's just re-releases. That's not hype.
I know. It's not. I know what you mean, but like on things they could have added to this list.
I did notice on Danny Brown's stage graphics, he had a reference to the Mario 64 start screen on there.
What, the big head?
Yeah.
Big pulled around by a glove.
Yeah, with the background tiles saying Mario 64.
That's quite cool. I mean, Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD haven't come out on Switch yet either. They only put Skyward Sword out.
Yeah, I know.
Which is weird.
I should definitely do Wind Waker, but I mean...
I don't think they consider that long enough between those releases. Like they're like, we've already made the HD versions of those. They just happen to not be on the current.
We just put them on the Wii U. Damn it! Like, why don't they take the whole Mario Kart 8 thing and be like, oh yeah, this came out on the Wii U. You know, we should probably re-release it and they'll do well. Anyway, that was Nintendo Direct. What's happening in other news? Forza another Forza game is going to be delisted because of licensing. But they're giving us quite some warning, I suppose. I don't know if they've warned us particularly in the past. I haven't done my research on that. But Forza Horizon 4 will be delisted in December. You will not be able to purchase that game unless you can find a disc. It will not be able to be played on Game Pass, even if you played it before. They are being somewhat generous in the sense that if you played Forza Horizon 4 on Game Pass but then went and bought DLC before the date they announced this, which was like a week ago, they will give you, like, so you can't go buy the DLC now and get this. They will give you a game code to redeem the game against your account digitally forever. So you can, say you bought the Lego DLC for Forza Horizon 4. It's like, now you own Forza Horizon 4 as well. Which I suppose is fair.
Well, but how does that work with the licensing, though? Because surely the whole point...
Well, because they're licensed up to December, they just can't sell it past that point. They can't sell it. You're allowed to play it, you just can't... They're not allowed to sell it or make it available to new people past that point.
That just seems... that is just how it works, I guess, but that does just seem weird that you would imagine with the ridiculous way that music licensing works that they'd actually not want you distributing the files. Right,
yeah. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. But yes, that's... and nobody's really sure whether it's the music licenses or the car licenses that are the problem.
Yeah, I guess there's that as well.
Who exactly is the fault there is unclear. But yeah, it's just another, hey, people need to sort out perpetual licenses for stuff. It needs to be a thing. It's not like you can't go and watch a movie with product placement in it, or if you watch I Am Legend, it's like they're not going to cut the Mustang out and replace it with some other car. Or Mad Max without the Ford Falcon. You know, it's not going to... They're not going to do that. Or The Matrix without Spybreak.
But they might have...
Even though that would be an easy edit, right? They could do that, but they won't do it.
I mean, I don't know if movie licensing works the same way, but you could have them stop distributing the movie if you wanted to in that kind of licensing contract.
I mean, you could, yeah. Disney have clearly done that with their Vault, right? They can just pull the plug at any time and be like, nope, no one can distribute that because we're not distributing it. We're not doing it. But that would suck. It's just not a thing, right? Yeah, licensing for TV and movies seems to have found an agreement with this stuff, but video games have not.
And also,
and maybe you're right. Maybe it's because of the digital extraction problem.
Well, it's also, I think, in movies, there's an actual distinction between product placement and purely incidental.
Sure,
you don't have to license every single car that you're going to see in a shop.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even know if you have to license any, unless you want them to promote a particular car to be the lead in it or something. Yeah. I don't even know that that's a thing for films.
Presumably, there's a lot of licensing that goes on for Fast and Furious.
Yeah, probably. All manufacturers we just want to be in this.
Yeah.
Right?
Zoom in on the hood ornament for a minute.
I think we're going to encounter, I think it's in Fast 6, where there's literally a vaporware car, a car that never existed, that they make a big deal about. Which is pretty funny. Yeah, so that's a shame. it's going to go on heavy discount at some point, but before it gets delisted. So if you do want to pick up a copy, apparently there will be a heavy discount coming at some point. So I'm hoping that applies potentially to the Lego DLC as well, because I kind of wanted to try that, because apparently they almost out Lego with the fidelity, because it's like it's Forza level fidelity, but for Lego bricks on cars and stuff like that. So it's apparently that is like super interesting to look at, if nothing else. But even if the gameplay just seems maybe not enough Lego that you would hope, but in the classic style. I feel like I didn't give Forza Horizon 4 enough of a chance. It was the one I fell off of. Not 100% sure why. Maybe it was because it was the one where they started paying too much attention to you and doing more story stuff and
telling you to upload things to YouTube.
Yeah, that kind of mentality, calling you superstar all the time whilst you flossed on top of a waterfall or something, you know. Stupid stuff like that. But then Forza Horizon 5 has all the same problems. Like, I don't know. Anyway. Maybe I'm bored of Britain.
Enough with this country.
You got any more news for a sec? You want to talk about the Kerbal Space Program thing?
No, not really.
Okay, Kerbal Space Program.
I mean, it continues to look like that game is not going to advance any further.
Yeah, Kerbal
even though they're trying to claim that it's now really for real early access.
But nobody's working on it.
As far as we know.
Yeah. Because the entire team got destroyed, right? That's how it... Like, the studio got shuttered?
As far as we know.
Yeah.
It's still not fully clear, really.
Speaking of sort of related to studio shutter news, Microsoft are refunding Redfall players that bought the... I think it's the players that bought the editions that had DLC in them. Or maybe it's everyone. I don't know. Anyway, they're refunding Redfall players after they shuttered the studio that would, in theory, be working on it to fix it.
Right.
So they're just take Redfall is done. Like they're not going to try and fix that. It is done. It is over. That disaster zone. I mean, maybe a mod community will spring up and fix it for someone, but I don't know. Anyway, Redfall's over. Don't get your hopes up, but perhaps get your wallet up with a refund.
Your wallet up.
Up the wallet. All right, I guess it's time for what you've been playing. Well, we already heard from you.
we had a little bit of me. I had a little bit of me, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go then, Zach, and then we can finish off?
Well, I've got so much to talk about.
Oh, boy.
Day where I have notes again.
That's fine, because I don't have a great deal. So,
because, well, not only have I been playing previous things, new things, but there was also a Steam Next Fest as well, so I played some demos.
Ah, sweet.
So it's everything that I do at once. So let's start
everything that Zach do.
That I do all at once.
Let's start with demos, I guess, because need to talk about at least one of these much less. The first one I played was called Preserve, which is basically it's just Terra Nil but with cards.
Oh, so it's not about jam then?
No. Well, I mean, there's probably fruit.
Preserve.
Yeah, it's the same sort of concept as Terra Nil of like building the environment. Only in this game, it's more like building it rather than restoring it.
Okay, right.
But then it's like a card. It has on like a deck, and you get cards that mean certain things. Where it's like here's the landscape cards that give you like the unimproved terrain that can be like highland or lowland, and that determines what biomes you can place on it. And then once you've got that place the biomes down, you can put the animals in. And then there's like different animals can fit in different environments. And if you have 3 of the same or 3 completely different species, that gives you a bonus.
Okay.
But it's not actually like difficult or anything. There doesn't seem to be really any strategy to it. And I'm not even sure what...
Yeah, it's just because it's super early, maybe.
Well, no, I think it's just meant to be more casual. Because I don't think there's really any... There's a... there's a sort of score target, and every time you hit the next target, that's when you get more cards, I guess. So there is sort of a puzzle to it where it's like you could theoretically fail to advance by not hitting the score target and therefore not getting any more cards to advance the game. But yeah, it doesn't seem that complicated or anything. And the combinations of stuff doesn't seem complicated either.
Okay.
Just put down the biome, put the animals in the correct biome, and then get points. And speaking of Terranil, that had an update as well. I haven't got to that yet. But that update sounds like, well, I mean, it's the first major update post-release, I guess. So it sounds like it's kind of actually making some new maps and whatnot. The kind of thing that game needed, some more content.
Put giraffes in the hole.
Yep. I played the demo of Creeper World IXE.
Oh God,
the next Creeper World game. No longer 5. It's called, I don't know what IXE even means, but
Have they done a demo of that before?
I've seen videos of it before, but I don't think they've done a demo before.
I feel like it's been like a long time since 4.
It hasn't been.
Okay.
Not nearly as long as between 4 and 3, I wouldn't have said. But yes, this one is slightly weird because, well, 4... I played 3, and that was obviously 2D top-down, and then it like simulates the depth by, counting it numerically or whatever, and then it spreads out as you would expect, a big mound of stuff to spread out, the creeper, obviously, because that's the whole point of this game. And then 4, it was a 3D game, but same concept. It was just like, now we've got the 3D graphics, but it's still showing you what the 2D game was doing, basically.
Right, yeah.
The big waves of creeper and everything. And the weird, cliffs that they tend to form where you've got, the hard edge of the map or whatever. But this one is 2D again, but it's a 2D side view cutaway. And it has, sand physics.
Oh, interesting.
So, terrain and stuff. And you're cutting into the terrain, digging holes into caves and whatnot, and then and then because it's 2D physics, the creeper is gravity affected, so it's filling up and that kind of stuff. And then the way the fighting works now, because it always used to be about turrets, and you'd build your energy grid across the bit of land that wasn't covered by creeper or whatever, and then you'd have your turrets at the front of that pushing the creeper back so you could expand. But now you have ships that are like the turrets, but they just essentially just float because they're anti-gravity or whatever. They just sit in the space, so you have to carve out, as you're carving the terrain, you need to make space for your ships to park in or whatever that allow them to angle their guns onto the creeper. But when you're moving them, it uses the sand physics again. So, the ships just, dissolve into pixels and then just flow to wherever they're going.
Oh.
Which means they can fit through, really tiny gaps.
Huh. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. I did find it slightly...
Nanoboats.
I did find it slightly harder to understand what's going on exactly, though. Because it's not as obvious, how the creeper is going to flow, with gravity affecting it and pressure if it's an enclosed cave or whatever and you dig in there. It's not, because if you had a big mound or I guess if you imagine a bowl in the old games, it's obvious when you cut through the wall of that it's going to fall out in a big wave. Whereas in this one, if it's a pressurized cave and you tunnel into it, then it's going to spurt out, but then how far up is it going to come or whatever?
Right, yeah.
It's not quite as easy to read that physics of it. But maybe that would just be something you get used to, and maybe it's also just a matter of the maps in this presumably early game part of the demo. Maybe there'll be ways to understand it better later,
or something you unlock, or it just becomes natural to you over time. Okay, there's this much weighing down on it, therefore it's probably going to spurt real high.
Yeah, but yes, apart from that, it's kind of just another one of those games, I guess.
Well, kind of, yeah. But I guess the change of perspective is interesting.
Yeah,
mixing it up a little. Ikes.
I don't know what that means.
Creeper World Dykes. Well, Dixie.
And then the last demo I played, which is one that potentially after this podcast I'm going to get Rob to play as well, because
right, yes, yeah,
he missed it obviously because
I wasn't paying attention.
He doesn't have time.
Yep.
for He doesn't have time for a demo fest.
How dare you?
He barely has time for normal amounts of games.
Yeah.
It was the demo of Rift of the Necrodancer, the new Necrodancer thing that they're doing, which is basically like Stepmania, I guess. Which is finger DDR, if you don't know what Stepmania is.
Yeah.
Or maybe you might...
DDR.
I mean, it's basically just an open source version of Dance Dance Revolution, but like you can play on keyboard, so it's finger DDR.
Finger DDR, yes. But like that's the idea of it. But then because they're using the Necrodancer like concepts as well, I guess, of it being about things moving on the beat and enemies that have different reactions to the beat. Although that's not quite so much the enemies reacting to the beat differently in this game, it's the enemies react to your hits. So when they come down the path or whatever towards the arrow keys in the traditional Stepmania fashion, but then like depending on what the type of enemy is, when you hit them, different things can happen. Sometimes the thing that it then reminded me of as I started understanding it better was like it's actually quite a lot like One Finger Death Punch.
Oh,
because where you have those different colours of enemies where you need to hit different combos of buttons. Yeah, that's kind of what it's doing in the Necrodancer form, where you have different enemies that take different numbers of hits and like move around the track when you hit them.
So you've got to remember how the enemies might move as you encounter them.
Yeah. So yeah, that is it's like it makes it kind of fucking hard.
Yeah.
But I'm not great at rhythm games anyway, I guess. But like, I was struggling on like the medium level.
I mean, you were pretty good at the last Necrodancer games.
Not that good.
Okay,
it's like
you're better than me. I could never get the memory down for how stuff would move.
Well, sure. Like, I mean, that is the big problem of that game is like being able to, and I mean that is still the case with this as well. Is like you not only have to remember it, but then you have to like read it in real time because that's why it's like
on the beat. Yeah,
it's actually kind of harder than like you would imagine a regular DDR / Stepmania / Guitar Hero thing to be, because not only are you having to like see them coming and like hit the right button at the right time, because of the ways the enemies take multiple hits and they can react to your hits. You're not just seeing what arrows are coming and hitting it. Because once you hit them, they can do something else and like they become another arrow essentially.
Yeah.
Like you're generating new arrows.
But within a beat, presumably. Like
not always. Like with like the higher tiers of skeletons, they come down the screen and the yellow ones, when you hit them once, they go back up until they hit something and then they come back down with it.
Oh.
So they can like completely be at a different time in the song or whatever once you've hit them once, which obviously in that case doesn't really matter that much because you usually have enough time because they go way back up. You're like 7 or 8 beats ahead before they actually arrive again. But the harder ones are ones where it's like the enemy moves back onto a row where there's another enemy, so it like becomes a 2-button push.
Right. Yeah.
Or a 3-button push. Sure. Well, except in 3-button case, actually also makes it harder because you push down to hit all 3 at once.
Oh, okay.
Or you can hit all 3 buttons otherwise, but
I see. But they just provided a shortcut.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, that's what makes it actually difficult to read sometimes. Is when you have a chain of enemies where it's like the bats that have 2 hits, but on the first hit they move in the direction they're facing. But if you have a whole line of bats, then like the first bat you hit moves on to the next line, and then you're hitting 2 bats, but then the one that didn't die moves on to the next line, and then the one that didn't die moves on to the next line. So you're following these bats as they move up.
Keeping a line of 2 together.
Yeah.
So what's the downside of just not pushing down all the time?
Well, because then you miss and you lose the combo.
Oh, right. Okay. There is scoring.
Like, yes, it's just like a Guitar Hero or Stepmania score thing.
Right, so yeah, it's not just about... there's not an actual sort of survival... It's not a survival game this time.
Well, I mean, you have a health point.
Sure. You have the like fail state, presumably, but like it's not the same... roguelike-y structure.
Well, I mean, I guess we don't. That's the thing, is this demo only contains like these 3 songs. It doesn't contain any of the other structure or any of the like mini games stuff that they showed in the trailers before.
Right.
The WarioWare-esque or Rhythm Heaven-esque, I suppose, mini game stuff. Or any of the connective tissue of how that all actually joins together.
And no shopkeeper?
Not in this, no.
Oh.
I haven't seen any of that.
You mean the most iconic part of that game?
I'm sure it'll be back in some way. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It looks pretty cool. I mean, it looks better than it did in the original trailers, if you've ever seen them from the old, from like, I think it was shown at PAX at some point. So there's been gameplay of it before, but it looks better than that now.
Did it make it into a Nintendo indie?
I think only as the like very trailery trailer.
Right.
I mean, it still had gameplay in that trailer, I think, but not like super. It was all very quick cuts or whatever. Oh yeah, and the other thing that I found that makes it kind of harder to read is also because it's doing Necrodancer. Everything moves on the beat, and so the track that they come down, they're moving square by square, not rather like smoothly.
Yeah.
But then that means that it's quite weird to get used to. But like when an enemy is on a half beat, like in DDR, it would be a different coloured arrow because it's on the half beat. But in this, the enemies on the half beat are still aligned to the grid. They just move on the half beat.
Oh.
So you actually have to see that, how there's a distinction between when they're moving as they're coming down.
So it's basically like when Pac Beam goes wrong.
You got shift.
Yeah. Well, no, not shift. Not the shift bug. The one where like stuff would spawn at the incorrect rate, so they wouldn't move down as a.
Oh well, they'd
chunk.
move chunky.
Yeah, they'd be like.
Yeah. And I mean, they do have like a little circle under them that is like highlighted light blue for the half beat, but I find that quite difficult to see because the enemy sprites are quite large and they cover that circle up quite a lot.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, that's just something you can get. I guess you'll just get used to. But it is kind of weird to not, because it's not smooth. It's not just a smooth flow of stuff coming down the screen. It is all moving on the beat. But yeah, the game seems pretty cool, or at least that part of that game seems pretty cool.
Yeah, all right.
And the music is great, of course.
It's still Danny Baranowski?
Well, one of the tracks in this demo is, yes.
Oh, okay, so they've got more artists involved.
I mean, technically Necrodancer did as well, because Necrodancer had the different characters that had different versions, different remixes of the same songs.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Like rock mode.
Yeah. So yeah. After this podcast, assuming that this file that I've got on the thumb drive works, Rob can try it, because it was a time limited demo, not to the next fest even. This was an independent thing. It was tied to the Clay like anniversary or whatever.
Okay,
because it's being published by them. But it was timed to that, so the demo went away. Can't get it any longer. But I tried it, and it seems to just run independently of Steam. So I just put the files on a thumb drive and we'll see if it'll run on Rob's computer.
Let's do it.
It was weird because I tried it, and because it has online leaderboards, and so if you run it outside of the time that the demo is available, it just blanks out the leaderboard and says, "Make sure you're connected to Steam and that your account owns the game."
Oh,
and it's like, so it knows that it can run without Steam, I guess.
Or weird. Okay.
So yeah, that's that.
It's just a demo. They shouldn't be worried about it.
Well, no, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd be happy to have that stealthy way for people to continue playing it beyond this short window of the demo time.
I must say, you ended up with, the only thing rhythm game I can think of that sort of demoed in this way was the Unbeatable B-side or whatever it's called. Unbeatable White Label, I think it was called, Unbeatable White Label, which is still free and you can still just go play it now, even though the full game's coming out at some point in the near future. Yeah, I mean, and there's some pretty great music in that.
I'm sure they're going to be doing a second demo closer to release with like the other stuff, the other mini games and whatnot. So yeah, we'll see about that.
Or maybe they won't.
Well,
because demos.
I feel like that's the kind of. I mean, if they've done one, I feel like they'd probably do another one.
Maybe, yeah.
So there's that. That was the demos of the Dex Fest. I started playing Oxygen Not Included again, and it runs real good.
Oh, right, on your new machine. Yeah,
it's like
Sure it does.
it's like I haven't actually got that far into the run, but it's still like running at full frame rate, which in that game is like it means it's literally running the simulation at full speed as well.
Right, yeah.
I can run it at like 3 times speed, and that actually means 3 times speed, not like 20 frames per second, as many frames as it can manage.
Right, yeah.
So that's nice, but there's not really much else to say about that game. Apart from the DLC is pretty close, apparently. I think it's just gone into like beta testing or whatever, or experimental, or whatever they call it. They've sent it out to influencers and YouTubers or whatever.
Oh, right, okay.
So people have uploaded
the
videos.
are out.
Yeah. And it does look, because I was worried about how, they're making this DLC that's basically sort of an environment where it's like the ice environment with all its related animals and plants and whatnot. And I was worried about how like that just solves problems, whereas like dealing with low temperatures, now you're just going to want the low temperature plant or whatever. And therefore, if you've got the DLC, that solves the problem of surviving in low temperatures. But it does look kind of... I mean, they have done more work than I would have thought. Like, there are some new buildings and new mechanics to it as well. It's not literally just like, here's the plants and animals that would go in the ice biomes, except it's also like the ice planet biome, rather than the regular ice biomes. I guess I don't know how they're going to distinguish that, because like the previous ice biomes have plants that exist in them, not animals, but they have specific plants that only exist in the ice biomes as it stands now. So are the new plants going to integrate with that, or is that old ice biome going to become like a distinct version of the ice biome, essentially? If you will be playing with the DLC. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. That's far too much ice, though. The whole problem. One of the major problems of dealing with Oxygen Not Included is dealing with heat. If you have all these cold biomes all over the place,
it's fine.
Then you don't need to worry about it. Although, obviously, for this DLC, the kind of whole point of this starting ice biome is it's the opposite problem. If you don't have any heat, and that is still true even on one of the starting asteroids you can have in the base game. It's not in the ice biome, but everything is just cold.
Oh, right.
So like regular plants just don't grow, which is that's the problem of that start, where you're like, I have to basically seal in one room and like deliberately heat it up in order to grow food. So yeah, that's coming. Played more Deep Rock because now I've got to play more than just one mission like I had last time.
Right, yeah.
But I'm not sure I like the new mission that much.
I mean, it's not. I don't think
I've
got
to play it as well.
Yeah, I've played a little bit. I don't think I've seen anything in this season that is really pushing the needle particularly. Do you know what I mean? It's something else. Like it's a tiny little extra bit to the random, but like it's not.
Well, I mean, you haven't had the overclocks, I guess. The
Yeah.
overclocks are probably the major thing that is actually interesting.
Sure.
And we haven't seen all of the new enemies.
But as I've always said before, like it's about the encounters and what could happen, and I don't know that what this adds is all that interesting.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, some of the new enemies are definitely a thing to deal with. The stealth one, particularly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've not seen that.
No, yeah, we didn't get it in the games we played, but I've well, the one time I had the most trouble with it, I think it was because I was trying to use speakers and not my headphones. Because obviously having proper, not even 3D, but stereo even,
Stereo would be good enough,
helps a lot to tell where that thing is.
Sure, and games do their own tricks in audio land, right, to make front and back feel a bit front and backy.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure I like the I think my big problem with the new mission type is just how the terrain generation is set up, because it's basically like 3 rings of corridors, but they're stacked vertically on top of each other, and then there's like a big room attached to each ring essentially. And And that just makes it really awkward to navigate, because you can be like, if you walk around one of the rings and you find one of the crystals and you're like, okay, I found that one, I have to find the next one. You can kind of have to walk all the way around the ring back to like the spawn room and then get into one of the other rings. It just makes it, sometimes you just have to travel a long way. Or, that makes it so that you just want to have a driller so you can cut between the rings.
Right.
And create these shortcuts. And it's like, I mean, that's fine if you have a driller, but like, what if you're not playing driller? I mean, that might just be one of those situations where it's just like, if I'm doing those missions solo, I just have to play driller. Because I kind of do that with refinery missions, because it makes setting up the pipelines so much easier to just be able to tunnel the pipelines directly to the points.
Yeah, okay.
Or if I'm doing escort on one of the terrain types where the train takes multiple hits to destroy, and I want to do it the cheese way, where you just tunnel the route beforehand before actually triggering the escort mission. That's obviously easier to do if you're a driller.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that seems essential.
Unless it's sand, in which case, where everything just only takes one hit. And
Yeah,
you
that's
just
not so bad.
dig through that pretty quick. But yeah, this might just become a mission type where I just have to use driller to compensate for the way the level is laid out, which is fine, I guess. Maybe one of the new driller overclocks will be something that I'll actually think is cool. I think I just got the one for the cryo cannon, except I don't think the cryo cannon one is that cool, because it's basically just sticky flames but for cryo.
Oh, okay.
So you just put the ice on the ground and then it stays there.
Walk on and the freeze, yeah.
Which is okay, I guess.
I need to find some for the driller that I actually want to use. That's my problem at the moment.
Well, I think your problem is because you haven't got super far into the overclocks, and well, you've only just really got the weapons by doing the assignments or whatever.
I'm still missing some.
Yeah. But like the way to play driller is to get the combos, right? Is to get the heat shock and use that basically. You want the flame,
which I kind of always forget about, like switching to cause those.
Yeah, I mean that's really the only class that does it that much is the driller. But like, yeah, you want to be using like flamethrower and then wave cooker, but with the heat shock mod.
Yeah,
or use the cryo cannon and then build the EPC for maximum heat damage. That's the other way I do that combo. Sludge Pump Sludge Pump is more independent of the secondary.
Okay.
Although it does still have combos.
And yeah, I don't have the Sludge Pump yet, so I can't tell you that.
Yeah. But that is definitely the problem with Driller, is like, especially before you have any of the unlocks, you feel super weak, even though you have the flamethrower, and it's like, this should be cool, but it's not
as effective. It's not as effective as you think it would be.
No.
Yeah. It's only particularly useful against swarmers, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, that is always the major advantage. Yeah. Every time I'm stuck being scout on a mission where there's just a shit ton of swarmers, I'm like, oh, God.
I do feel like I'd go down a lot more playing as Driller than I do with the other classes. Like those, especially the last time we played, I don't know, those weren't great runs for me.
that might just been not great runs, not necessarily Driller runs.
Maybe.
And we didn't do the core stone, I guess. That doesn't help. The core stone thing with those hardy spawn enemies that come out of the rifts. They're pretty tough.
Yeah, that was tricky. That was very tough.
But at least that's something you can prepare for. Although I was kind of worried when I loaded into a mission, and as the drop pod was coming down, a voice line started that was like, the core stone is spawning enemies. I was like, oh crap, as the drop pod just landed on it and triggered the whole event right at the start of the mission.
As soon as you come out.
But apparently not. That voice line just randomly triggered for no reason.
Oh, bit of a
random bug. So yeah, that's Derg. And then the other thing that I've majorly been playing, except that I'm probably not going to talk about very much, is Core Keeper, which is essentially Terraria but like top down. So it's sort of similar concepts. Well, I guess you're not on the surface ever in this game, you're always underground. But like, as you go away from the middle, you get into these different environments in the same way as Terraria has its underground environments. And then you're looking to fight bosses which are also kind of similar to Terraria. It's like, here's the giant slime and here's the giant worm thing that tunnels through the terrain.
Massive eyeball?
not massive eyeball. I mean, it kind of had the other version. Terraria has 2 different corruptions. The eyeball is related. Well, I guess it's not technically one of them, but the giant worm thing in Terraria is related to the normal corruption, and then in the other corruption you get like a giant floating brain, basically.
Okay.
And the third boss of Corekeeper is maybe more similar to that one, except it's more like a turret, I guess. It's a stationary blob that just like chucks acid and lava at you, I guess.
It's the massive brain Androth.
No, I don't think it's meant to be like a reference.
Oh. Secret Star Fox game.
Oh.
I've been very tempted of late to try and get hold of a copy of Starlink with the Star Fox expansion.
Sure, I mean, I guess.
I mean, yes, I'd have to play the Switch version in order to do that, which is clearly not going to be the best version of the actual game.
Mm.
But it has the Star Fox stuff in it.
Yeah.
And you get a friggin' R-Wing.
Yep.
You get a model R-Wing, and it's like, there's a bit of me that's just like, oh, that's so cool. Very tempted.
Yeah.
Maybe when Switch 2 comes out, that will have enough power. Like, do you reckon Switch 2 will do the thing where like it has like there'll just be like a power boost to it, like it will like sort of overclock?
I mean, that's what we're all hoping.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for that. Not just for
Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much else to say about Corekeeper, which is kind of a shame. Like, it is just so much like Terraria, except not. Obviously, it can't compete with Terraria because Terraria is ridiculously huge because it's been worked on for like 14 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Can't really compete with that. But I mean, it's fine. It does have.
You're still building stuff even from top down.
Yeah, it's got like, you build rooms. Except from top down, and the like NPCs move into it just like Terraria, and
right,
same concepts.
Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, kind of. It can look a bit like that, except it's not. There's no complexities to that system. In fact, even less so than Terraria, because like in Terraria, well, I guess it's sort of the same amount of complexity. Because like when you build a room in Terraria to get an NPC to move in, it requires like seating, a table of some kind, and a light. So you can do various designs and various different things count as like seating or surfaces that count as a table. So, and there's a whole different bunch of aesthetic versions of tables or whatever. So you can make it look cool, but that's really all a room needs in Terraria.
Right.
And that's not what causes the NPCs to appear. Like, your progress through the game is what causes the NPCs to appear. And then you can just assign them rooms yourself. So you can be like, I want the wizard dude to live in the wizard tower that I made because it looks cool.
Why wouldn't you?
Whereas in Corekeeper, it's like when you defeat a boss, you get an item that causes a specific merchant to spawn if you put it in a room, and then the room only requires like bed, door, light, or whatever. So it's a very similar. Like, it doesn't have very much restrictions, but it's much less customizable, really.
Sure.
And there's less reason to make it look cool because of this. Like, you don't have as many options or anything.
Right. Do you think the top-down angle limits that a little bit, like as to how cool it could look?
Yeah.
Like, when we're saying top down, like, how is it sort of literally like perfectly on top, or are they sort of doing it like Link to the Past ish?
Yeah, it's more like I guess it's more like how Factorio's angle is. Like, it's top down, but like it has a
Command and Conquer.
Yeah. And you can't like rotate the view or anything, it is just fixed.
Right, yeah. Sprite work, presumably.
Yeah. And then the main problem that I have with it, I think, is that like it has a leveling system for your skills, except it's using the ancient Oblivion style, where like doing the thing levels up the skill.
Oh, okay. Dagger.
Yeah, essentially. But like it feels like it's slightly too far on the grindy end of that. Where it's like, if you want to level up fishing, you just have to sit there and do a ton of fishing. And it's like, that's not fun, really. Or because there's not enough variance to the fishing, I guess. And that can apply to all the other stuff like farming and the crafting bonuses. Like, I haven't quite got to the point of dagger yet, but you could easily do that.
Yeah.
Just be like, I'm just going to craft a shit ton of stuff to level up the crafting skill.
Dagger was only like desirable because it was like actually quite efficient, right? In terms of like materials.
Usage, yes.
Yeah, material to output.
Yes. You were using the minimum amount of metal to level up your smithing skill. But yeah, I feel like that leveling tree is maybe a bit grindy, but like, I think the other problem we talked about because I'm playing in multiplayer, was that like it also has too much spoilers built into the game. Like as you advance up the tech tree, so obviously it's like Terraria, when you defeat a boss, you're essentially getting access to like the next tier of materials. So you like move from copper to iron or whatever. But when you build the new stuff, sometimes it can like reveal too far ahead of what you're about to see.
Oh, weird.
Like once you defeat the third boss, which is, as far as you know, that's all the bosses there are at that point of the game. But when you defeat the third boss and the core turns on, and then it does a little bit of a lore dump on you, and then it's like, oh, there's 3 more bosses. But like you just know that. And you can also see that each of the bosses is related to a certain area of the map, and the area of the map has certain materials. And it's like you're already seeing this whole next tier of progression like instantly.
Right.
You didn't
need the game to tell you because you had the map. Like,
yeah, kind of. But it does that even on a sort of smaller scale, where because the next tier of crafting is generally locked behind the crafting bench. So if you're in like the copper age where you are having copper, you're like at the end, the last thing in the crafting menu for copper is like the iron workbench. So once you get an amount of iron and you build the iron workbench, suddenly you can see all the recipes for iron.
Right.
So
even though you don't have the materials necessarily.
Yeah, even on that level, it's like it spoils that entire tier every time. So yeah, that can be it does kind of ruin the surprise in some ways.
But then is it nice to know what material you should be looking for? But like, or maybe that level should unlock once you've beat the next boss, right? They just show you it once you've got to the point where the materials for that stuff is available.
Well, but it is though, because you've got the material to make the crafting table. But then everything you're making with that crafting table is that material tier.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so you're already at that tier by the time you can see that stuff.
Because the trick of the way Terraria does it is that like you can always see the recipes for everything, but only when you have the item in your inventory. Like when you have if you have wood in your inventory, you can put the wood from your inventory into like the crafting query menu, and it shows you everything that can be made of wood. But like that only tells you based on what other materials you've touched, basically.
Okay, so and no material. If you haven't picked up the material, it doesn't show.
Well,
on the list.
That's not strictly true. Sometimes there are like future stuff, but like it doesn't necessarily spoil the progression because you're just like, well, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to get it at some point, I guess. But I don't know when or how. And in some cases, it's not even super obvious.
You know what it makes, or does it even just question mark out what the
No, it will show you the item in Terraria, but because it is limited to like the material, that does allow them to hide things somewhat. Because there are things in Terraria that are like upgrades from previous items, especially the combined items, where it's like if you have, because accessories in Terraria, you have accessory slots that give you upgrades, but then you eventually get the ability to basically combine accessories, but it's specific accessories. So that actually gives you a reason to like, you take an accessory you like or whatever, you put it into the crafting query and you see all the things it can combine with. So you know, like, I like this buff, but then in the future, I can stack it with one of these other buffs, so I better start looking for that item. So yeah, Terraria does have its own spoilers in that way, but because there's so many goddamn items or whatever in Terraria, in some ways you kind of need that
right.
to be able to work out what to do with anything. But yeah, I think that is the problem maybe, that because there's much less items, it all gets spoiled at once in Core Keeper. But yeah, that's that game. I don't know, like we've played it somewhat, but I don't know how much longer it's going to hold our interest. And we also might already this week be trying to play another game in parallel, but except I don't think it's going to be in parallel. I think one of these is going to win.
Why? What's the upcoming game?
The upcoming game is, what's it called? Abiotic Factor? Ambiotic Factor. I forget, it's one of those terms. But it's a very strange game from what I understand, which is not much, but it's a survival crafting base building thing, except it's like themed as though it was Half-Life 1.
Oh.
So it has those weird low poly models, and it's also in like an underground science lab that you're having to survive and craft in.
I got recommended this.
Yeah. It's quite weird. And also this lab apparently might be in Australia, as judging by the accents. But I'm sure that's just a thing of convenience for their voice acting.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't really know much about it, but it does appear to be like I guess, maybe in the vein of 7 Days to Die-esque. Like you're building your underground base to survive against enemies of some kind, except in this case it'll probably be, I guess, aliens.
Crikey, mate, your face is less detailed than I was expecting.
Yeah, pretty much.
Crikey. I resisted the urge to try and play one of those crane games to win a Blu-ray doll.
Okay.
Speaking of the Australian connection.
You didn't try? Okay.
No. I mean, I knew I was going to lose. I'm terrible at those things.
And it's always
rigged. They're rigged.
Because it's rigged. Yeah, exactly. I'm never the person that plays it once and gets the toy, right?
It's the random roll that lets you win. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. Quite a lot of stuff.
Quite a lot of stuff. What about you, Rob?
Many a thing. I'll tell you what I will be doing soon, because one of the thing I've missed the most since I let my PS Plus account lapse.
Yeah.
Is that I don't have a copy of Wipeout Omega Collection.
Oh no.
So I've got that, a physical one.
Yeah, I picked up a physical copy because it was just like now I've got it forever. It's fine. It's fine. So that happened. So I might play a bit more of that. I've been building up a Spotify playlist of Wipeout music. So it's
what you need.
Or Wipeout would be good for Wipeout music as well.
Yeah.
So that would be fun to do. Play a bit more of that. But yeah, so I haven't really done anything new and interesting particularly this week other than arcades. So fairly boringly. So I finished Klonoa 2.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that one, in the sense that of comparing it to the first, right? I was sort of going into the start of Klonoa 2 thinking, oh yeah, this is a better game. And then towards the back half thinking, this is not a better game. Partly because it has it takes a lazy way out a little bit, in that it reuses a lot of its levels more, so you go through them more than once, but they change a bit the second time you go through, or you do them backwards with
Mirror Road.
Yeah, with some other stuff in it. And it's as a result of that, after a while, it cheapens the feel of the game, which the first one, that wasn't a problem, right? I think that may have happened once or twice, but I can't really remember. But generally not. The first game didn't do that. And I wouldn't say this second one is any real longer than the first one, so it does end up feeling a bit as a result. Also, some of those levels are far too long. And there's no... you think back to PlayStation 2 era, there was no mid-level saving of these things, or no, and of course you don't have quick. I mean, you have quick resume now, so this is fine. But at the time, that must have kind of sucked, trying to play one of these pretty long levels.
Well, at the time, you had time to play really long levels.
Maybe, yeah. Well, when we were children, yes, we would have, or younger, we would have had the time to do it as it was intended, but just not now. Yeah, and I still think it has a lot of the problems of the first game, like the hitbox detection of you firing your incredibly short range looking like little wind bullet things to attach to things. Sometimes the hitboxing on that feels really unfair, or sometimes it looks like it just totally didn't bloody work. Like the animation for the wind bullet will just look like it's passed through a thing, and you're like, well, why didn't I get that? Oh, no, I'm dead. Okay, great, thanks, game. And there were definitely some sequences towards the end of the game where that was incredibly irritating. where it's just like, why on earth didn't that connect? Kind of blah, like stupid game, crappy map, lag, whatever. And the last bosses weren't nearly as interesting as not that the last bosses were particularly interesting in the first game, but they were more interesting in that than they were here. They were a bit run of the mill here, so I don't know which one I really prefer. And it didn't have a gut punch ending like the first one did either. So it's like the first one ends on a real downer in a strange way. But the second game didn't. The story was pretty rote in the end. I'm glad I played them because they're kind of. I don't know. Klonoa is part of Namco's history. Sure. There are still cars in Ridge Racer 3D that I'm sort of touching every now and then, which have Klonoa branding on them because that's what Ridge Racer does, right? I'm glad I played them, so I'm caught up, I suppose. And now I understand what those games are, but I sort of understand why they're not mainstream or like held in that same pantheon.
Well, like many mascot characters of that age.
Yeah. Mr. Nuts.
And in fact, mascot characters of this age. What about that ukulele remake? That's really funny.
It's weird that exists, right? Well, that gives them a chance to fix what people thought was a problem with the first game. Because people like their second attempt, right? The sort of 2D ukulele game. Like, that was apparently good. So there's that. I've carried on playing G-Police when I can, when Badger's not around. But holy hell does that have a difficulty spot. I got to the second disc, and it's near impossible now. Like, I'm really struggling with it. It took me friggin' ages to get past mission 15. I know I'm about halfway through the game, which is problematic. It's sort of having the problem of old school game design where like it's trying to split your attention between multiple things, but really there's only one thing you should be doing, but you're not really sure what that is because of the way it presents it. So the mission the previous mission I did was an escort mission, notoriously awful, right?
Yeah,
it's like protect this ground team.
Classic.
But the stuff there were things on the route of the ground team that if you didn't get ahead of the team and go and destroy those
take it out first, right?
Like if you're just following the team and they get there, they're going to die immediately. But the problem with that is like you get ahead of the team and then you get a message over the radio saying the ground team's been eliminated, and you're like, by what? There is nothing around to destroy them, or as far as I can tell, there is nothing around to destroy them. So you kind of just have to get a bit like either there's a trick to the timing that you need to figure out somehow, or there's just something I wasn't getting. I don't know, or it's just like you're too far away from the ground team, so something killed them.
Yeah, probably.
Like I don't really know, and I don't really follow. But it took me friggin' ages to eventually get through this mission, and then it sort of seemingly ended earlier than I was expecting. On the one time I did it, I was expecting more waves of enemies to come by, but they sort of didn't, and it just says mission accomplished, and I'm like, is that a glitch as well? I don't really know. And then the next mission is also like there's the G-Police headquarters are under attack in two separate locations, so you've got to kill all the things in one location. Then it immediately says go to this other location. Well, but you haven't finished your job in the first place, and it's like go to the other place. And then a few seconds later it knows no, go to the other place. There's a matter of urgency, so you do. And then you fail the mission because the other place is fucked. Like it's like, what do you want me to do, game? Like it's getting quite frustrating now. Like to understand what the actual goal is supposed to be. I don't know if I mentioned on podcast last time, but I did try emulating G-Police, and but with a highly overclocked PS1 as the emulation target. You can run that thing at 60 frames per second, like with those weird graphic settings I mentioned last time, like maxed out, so you can at least get the most that this game could do in PlayStation land, if you really wanted to, through emulation, and it is. or at least on the few missions I did playing it that way, it is a hell of a lot easier playing it with like 60 FPS. I was using my DualShock 3 on my PC, so I was at least using a similar controller. I don't know. So it just seemed much easier playing it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Rather than on real hardware, which is a shame. I'd had another go at trying to get the PC version to run, but I still can't.
I'm just too old. The graphics drivers, right? I guess.
I mean, no, there are ways around that. There's a thing called DG Voodoo that you can use that is basically a translation layer from like old Direct 3D and old 3D FX, and it will translate it to modern Direct 3D, or modern DirectX. So that side of it isn't so much of a problem, but I can't get the game to launch. So there's some bigger fundamental problem that I haven't figured out what to do. There's plenty of people saying it can be done. There's YouTube videos of people playing it like max, like with enhancements and stuff like that, and it's like, well, how did you get it to that state? I think some people the flow is easier, but for me, I can't get it running.
It's the luck of the kind of environment they've got set up. Somehow.
Yeah. So yeah, didn't figure that one out, which is a shame. Apparently, you can do the same problem exists for like Wipeout XL or Wipeout 2048, 7, whatever that game is called.
7.
Yeah, so you can get that running on modern PCs. The PC version of that, but yeah, I haven't managed to get that to work either. I had a good go, but there's better ways of spending my limited time than faffing with this stuff.
By the way, in potential video news, I'm always badgering on at Zach to do XCOM or whatever, but I think that's kind of annoying to get going. But I saw that there's an open XCOM, like a fully open source port of the original,
right?
For modern stuff. So maybe that's worth a try. It's good. That's what it's called.
Presumably they've had to do is it the same thing as OpenTTD where it's had to be completely re-implemented and then the graphics completely redone as well? Or is it like
I think
open in the sense that you put the old game into the new code and it's
the way OpenTTD used to work?
Yeah. And get your WAD or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how you get the content of the original game into this completely scratch thing. It says OpenX requires a vanilla copy of the XCOM resources from either or both of the original games. Okay. Sure. If you own the games on Steam, the Windows installer will automatically detect and copy them over. Okay.
Isn't Revolt GL the same sort of thing, right? You need the original asset files.
Mm.
And it will just run it under the newly made engine. Or the N64 recompile stuff. That's the same thing, right? You need You need an original ROM, and it will rejig it. So they're not shipping the game then. they're just shipping the rejigger. Legal. Yeah. So I've been doing that. What was the other thing? I've been playing a little bit more Humanity. Not a huge amount to say, other than I think I'm enjoying it less as it goes on. Like. It got more Lemmingsy, like more directly Lemmingsy.
Right.
There's quite a lot of mechanics in this thing, and there's quite a lot of variation in what the levels actually are. But as I mentioned before, like as soon as I encountered the others and there's like adversarial elements to the game, I don't know why I'm sort of feeling it a little less. But yeah, you get levels where you do that you don't have an infinite stream of people coming out of a door. You just have these are the people on the level. You've got to use them to do the job before they get murdered by the other tribe or whatever, and do the thing. So they do mix it up quite a lot, which is to their credit. Their framework is pretty good for that. But I think I kind of preferred it at the start when it was just kind of like a choo-choo rocket, but with a bit more fluid dynamics going on because of the stream of people. Like I'm at the point now where you can. These aren't spoilers because they were in the trailers and stuff. But I'm at the point now where you get a power where you can depending on the level, you get powers to arm your humans with either lightsabers or pistols. And then there's like combat mechanics, right? So the lightsaber guys are better at murdering the long range guys, but you've got to get them to the long range guys before the long range guys could shoot them. So, take them a sneakier route to get to them, and then they'll be more effective against them. And I've sort of run into my sort of problem with this is like, especially in the levels that aren't like plan a thing, hit the go button, watch it play out. The more real-timey stuff in the game is that there's an element of random introduced by all this, because you're dealing with the flow of things in that whole stream of people kind of way, and because it's fluid dynamics and a bit physicsy, I suppose. Like you could end up with splinters of people sort of running off. Like they've sort of got an area of a tract around them, so they're inclined to fight if you've given them weapons. But that means they'll like veer off their path when they come into range of something they could fight, and that happens both ways, both to your guys and enemy guys. So that could be kind of annoying because you could end up with a rogue element sometimes as things veer off where you don't expect them to. And there's also been more levels where you don't know what the enemy are going to do until you hit the go button or until it starts playing out. And then you can put it into the sort of paused state, and then you can see the commands that the other team have put down. So you can't necessarily plan for it on your first go. You kind of have to do what you think is going to happen, run it, and then stop, and then be like, okay, now I can see what they are doing, and now I can adjust for it on a second run, which I don't really think feels like a good puzzle at that point. If I'm forced to I can't see what they're doing ahead of time. I don't know. There's little things like that coming in where it's just like, it's not as engaging, or the draw has dropped since the start. But at least they're throwing new mechanics around on a fairly frequent basis. There is that, but I'm just not so sure about where it's going. Maybe it will change. I mean, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will change again at some point, and the game will play differently again. And maybe that will pick up once I'm through this section. But I mean, I still like its style. It's still cool. My preferred style of people is to make them all look like neon dominoes. Like, just simplify them so they don't look like people anymore. Just make them big old blobs. Make them neon colors so I can see them real easy. The weapons kind of sort that problem out as well, because they get giant blue lightsabers, so I can tell them apart. But that's humanity. It's kind of what that game's bag is. I also picked up a copy of Ridge Racer 7, which I probably won't play for a very long time. But now I own Ridge Racer 7. So,
now you have it prepared. Yeah. Okay. For future.
Because it requires a PlayStation 3.
Mildly retro racing.
This is probably the most stupid one I've picked up in a way, because Ridge Racer 7 is basically Ridge Racer 6. It just runs a bit better. Because the PlayStation 3 could do 1080-60 rather than 720-60. There you go. That was the only thing. It was cheap. I'm not complaining. I saw it and it's like, that's a bug. I'm having that. That's me.
Got that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Cool. And that's the games we've been playing. I haven't played anything new. Just same stuff. Nothing to report. But you can watch videos. Did you
finish Mario in the end?
Yeah, I did.
Wonder.
Yeah. We talked about that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, all inventive. Even the final boss inventive. But I think it's like, I suppose I haven't done every single special state area, whatever, in the clouds, because they get quite ridiculous. Maybe I should go back and do that. I don't know.
The Rainbow Road or Star Road or whatever it's called this time. There's usually some equivalence there, isn't there?
Yeah. But there was one I got to up there early on that was the hardest thing in the whole game so far. So it did kind of put me off. It's one of the ones where you had to... everything had to be timed to the beat of a song, of a music that's increasing in tempo. Basically... platforms that only appear on, for a short period in time, right?
Oh, right. Cool.
So if you go too fast, it's bad, and if you go too slow, it's bad. and you can sort of get behind. Anyway, there was one of those that took ages to get me to get to the end of those. So that kind of put me off doing. I'm sure some of them aren't as hard as that one. But yeah. It's called like jump, jump, jump or something like that, you know? Anyway. Yeah.
So I was talking to someone I know about the other day about the music stages from Rayman Legends. It's like those are still great. Those are still great.
Yeah.
Play Rayman Legends.
Yeah.
You'll have a good time.
So yeah, I think that'll do it for us. Do check out our YouTube channel. We're still playing Half-Life 2. We'll get another one of those up soon.
The Magic the Gathering video went up.
Yeah. That's the thing I've been playing, so you can check out my sort of explanation of how the hell that works. Probably not that. It's
not really explaining how magic works, but it's a video for perhaps for how Arena works. I think it's a video for lapsed MTG players that are like, what the hell is happening nowadays?
Like you guys, yeah,
like me.
So anyway, I'm sure it's a popular game, so I'm sure there's a few people that will appeal to. But yeah, it's also like, if you're experienced with the Arena, it's probably super basic as well. So maybe it falls between two stools. But anyway, I had fun. So check that out. And yeah, we'll be back with another one of these here Saladcasts in a couple of weeks, as per usual. So we'll catch you then.
Oh, we'll write
See ya.
If we must.